Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Anyways,
Infinity, is your
these niggas
position
are so scared.
agnostic? Or are you like agnostic or
Yeah,
like
sure.
where?
Hold on, let me join on my stream.
Oh, yo, Auggz, you here?
Yep.
Alrighty,
Infinity
twin.
KO said that he could 2v2 if he want to.
Yo, Auggz, just do what you need to do, twin. You already know what the fuck going.
Are you guys ready? Because I'm gonna announce it.
Wait. Who's going first?
Okay.
Bro, hello?
Hey,
Infinity's gonna join on
Auggz.
his other account.
Yeah.
Hey, twin, you know what's going.
Bro, who's going first? Who's going first? Who's going first?
I mean, we're gonna start off because we're taking the affirmative.
Yeah. Which
Yo, can we move some of the people on the stage down? Can we move Hero down?
that's
Move
fine.
nine debate. Can we? I apologize, Reson. Can we move Reson down?
It's fine. I'll just move everyone but the mod down
um,
and the debaters.
yo, moderator, you here?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me know when you have your timer ready, and then we'll start on our first word.
Yeah. By the way, yeah. So, for the moderation, it's 4 minutes and 30 seconds, but they both share that time.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. I'm gonna keep Infinity server muted until the time is up or they say they're done, okay? Right.
Okay,
You
start
guys
our
can start.
timer on our first word. I'll tell you what. Just let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready, just start, bro.
Okay, so in today's debate is going to be me and Auggz versus Infinity, and we'll be presenting an argument in virtue of the claim necessary being exists. Now, we're going to list out the whole argument that allow Infinity to give any objections. Premise 1 states, if no necessary being is logically possible, and if possibly there exists a contingent thing, then it cannot have an external explanation. Premise 2 states, a contingent thing possibly exists with a external explanation. Conclusion 1 states a necessary thing is possible. Conclusion 3 states a necessary thing is either necessary or impossible. Conclusion states a necessary thing necessarily exists, at least one. So within the debate, what we've done now is laid out the whole arguments. And now with the remaining of the time, I'll go through each premise and then let my teammates say anything. So, well, actually, I'll just justify like the first half all the way to C1. So premise 1 states, if no, or actually, I'm gonna start off with giving a definition. So an external explanation is a type of explanation where the explanandum and the explanans are now the same modal class. And premise 1 is saying, look, if we exclude a necessary being, right, is it going to be the case that a contingent thing can have an external explanation? And the answer there is no. In virtue of the dichotomy, right? And you want to say once you remove an option of the dichotomy, you're left with only another contingent thing. That's just to say a contingent thing being an external explanation for another contingent thing is impossible. So that's all premise 1 is saying is you cannot have an external explanation if the contingent thing was impossible. And then premise 2 is just saying an external explanation with or a contingent thing with an external explanation is possible, and the modality there is a logical modality. And you could just justify this given a conjunctive truth table because we take a logical modality to be saying in at least one evaluation of propositions output it is true. So you can take the postulate P, there exists a contingent thing, and a postulate Q, say contingent thing has an external explanation, at least one evaluation this output is true. All right, so within the debate or within the recording so far, we've justified premise 1 and premise 2. Conclusion 1 states a necessary thing is possible. Now I'll let my teammate talk.
He covered pretty much everything I would have wanted to cover there. I think we can concede the rest of the time.
Yeah, mute both of them before I start speaking.
Bro, I told Nani, bro, that he didn't give me a role that can mute people.
That's very unfortunate. Look, hey Oshi, can you please give him a perm that allows him to mute people? Let me know when you have it.
I mean, we could just stay on mute.
Bro, unironically, you might just have to have someone else good fucking mod. I can do everything but mute. I can even buy
As
one.
long, I mean, we can like just stay on mute.
We'll promise to stay on mute.
All right, if Infinity's fine with that, then we can like start it. But... Bro, Nani, I fucking did leave and rejoin. Why do you think you have to let me up twice? Are you?
Yeah, look, just stay on mute. As a response to all the blunders that was made, I'm not sure why these things can't be self-explained. Secondarily speaking, I'm not sure what the issue with the categorical modal profile being something which allows for its instantiations to explain each other infinitely speaking. I'm not sure what the issue with that type of claim is. I'm not sure what is going to be the codification for the dichotomy. I'm not sure what the codification for the dichotomy is going to be. I'm not sure if I grant the codification for the dichotomy, meaning I don't even grant that that dichotomy is something which necessarily needs to be dichotomous. It's the case that I don't grant that necessities are going to be something which is possible, because obviously you're going to have some non-controversial view, which is that some necessary being exists. Wow, that makes you look so good, beating on someone on whether or not some necessary being exists from reality. So what's going to happen is I'm not going to grant necessities. I'm not going to grant possible necessities. I'm not going to grant anything which allows the codification for these types of laws. When it comes to the metaphysical law for the modal profiling, I'm not sure if it is the case that this set is not something which actually just disqualifies the potent necessity in terms of its existence and match to reality. So it's the case that nothing that you said so far actually successfully entails the conclusion that your point is true, but rather it seems as if you're just saying random shit because you don't understand the argument. Okay? So in sum, one, I need a justification as to why these things can't be self-explained. Secondarily speaking, I'm not sure why the modal profile distinction is going to be something which is relevant when it comes to explanations within this set of contingents. Thirdly speaking, I'm not sure if the way that reality is fundamentally speaking even allows for the necessities to be possibly existing. Fourthly speaking, it's the case that I'm not even sure what codifies the dichotomous point. I need an argument for that, because obviously the conjunctive truth table is going to be based upon that type of codification as well. Okay? So go ahead and respond to the points. This time, don't blunder, retard.
What was his last point? Is he not going to be willing to? Oh, did you catch the last point you made?
Oh shit, I couldn't unmute. I mean, so look, this is what I caught, right? He said something like, I don't know why it can't explain itself. We're not saying it can't explain itself. We're saying if it were to have an external explanation, then the thing would have to be necessary because it would have to be outside of the class. No one is talking about internal explanations here. Okay. The first premise is just saying, if this thing is possible. So we're not commenting on, if self-referential explanations are the type of explanations that can explain something. So I don't think that even needs to be addressed. I didn't catch his last point. The other thing is he said, I'm not going to grant possible necessities, but that's just what conclusion one is. So you would have to reject a premise if you're going to say that. That's like what that's establishing. I don't know, Kylo, what do you have?
Okay, so he thought type speaking at 10x speed was going to be productive. I got 2 of the 4 points typed out. I don't know if he's willing to say the last 2 points, or we can just catch the last 2 points in his next cross. But his first response is, I want to be clear, he only had put in clarity questions, so he didn't attack any premise. He only asked, why should I accept X, Y, and Z? And we'll basically justify that. So he first said, why can't they be self-explained? But that's confused because premise 1 doesn't say they can't be self-explained. Premise 1 says there cannot be an external explanation, and my teammate already explained what's being said there. So that first question is confused. I don't see the relevance relation. What does that question hold any bearing to our argument? And then his second point is, why is the modal profile relevant? Well, it's relevant given the analyticity, right? We take an external explanation via the definition to be the type of explanation where the explanon and the explanandums are not of the same modal class. Now, that's true in virtue of the definitions. That's going to be why it's relevant for the dialectic. Now, we went through the first set of the argument to get conclusion 1. So we're going to go through the last set just so we can make sure that within the debate, we've done our job to give the whole argument and justify each premise. So after you get conclusion 1, which states a necessary being is logically possible, you go to premise 3, which states a necessary being is either necessary or impossible. And then conclusion 2 states a necessary being exists at least one. Within the debate, now we went through C1 and C2. We went through every premise and justified it. Well, premise 3 was LEM. The conclusion follows there. So here's what's the next step. And Auggz, if you don't mind, I don't know if you got your laptop open. We gotta probably type this down. I know the tactic he does, just like
I'm on my
blabber.
phone, but I'll type it.
Yeah. We gotta get all the blabber so we can make sure we
But look, just
adequately
to
respond.
recap, right? The self-referential objection, right? Our premise 1 isn't talking about self-referential explanations. It's just saying if this thing were to have an external explanation, then a necessary thing must be possible in virtue of the analytic truth to which we're defining what an external explanation is. And then when he says, I don't grant possible necessities, again, that's just what conclusion 1 establishes. So you have to, object to a premise directly for you to say that. And then, yeah, if you have any contentions with premise 3, let us know.
I think
And,
he also put in question the dichotomy. He's like, well, why is the dichotomy exhaustive? And just to respond to that, right? All you do is look at any referent X, and you can use this type of device to extrapolate the conclusion. And that's just to say, you ask the question: is this being one which is instantiated in all possible worlds? And then, given the answer to that question, allows you to decipher the modal class or the mode of existence that being is instantiated in. And it's going to be the case either it is contingent or not contingent, and it being not contingent is one which we deem to be necessary, because if it's not contingent it's given aspect, that just means there are no possible worlds where this given being is not instantiated, right? Nevertheless, we'll wrap this up and let you give your response.
Yeah, so translation for all the people who can actually track. Well, I'm not sure if Infinity is willing to actually repeat the points that he made. No, let me translate real quick. It's actually, I'm not sure if Infinity is willing to hold my hand and take me down the rhetorical road because I fucking suck. Just to respond to something that Auggz said, whenever it comes to the rejection, or in other words, the objection to P1, well, we're not talking about some self-referential scheme. We're talking about the external explanation. Maybe you're retarded, but if it's the case that I don't grant that there exists some issue with the modal machinery being something which instantiates an explanation for its own set, I can object towards P1, and then alongside the objection towards P1, also grant that this is not going to be something which actually is relevant. At least this conversation is not going to be something which is actually relevant to talks about reality, because you're trying to instantiate God's existence within reality. But if it follows that the modal profile, I apologize, the modal system or modal machinery is something which allows for explanations within its own set, then it follows that there doesn't need to exist an external explanation in the first place. And then secondarily speaking, if you're going to want to give an argument such as, well, the modal machinery cannot be instantiated by itself, there's no incompatibility with that. For one, and then secondarily speaking, it's the case that the self-explanatory point is supposed to be in regards to the modal machinery point, which is used as a basis for rejection of P1. At least one of the structures I'm using as a basis to P1, at least when it comes to its rejection. You need to fucking track that. I'm not sure if there exists some metaphysical compatibility with the laws of thought. Like I said, you're trying to take some controversial, or I apologize, some uncontroversial view, which is, well, there exists at least one necessity. That doesn't make you look good at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to reject the laws of thought. Is it the case that LEM is true? Because you're going to obviously you want to presuppose that for one of your premises. Is it the case that the economy is going to be something which actually holds? Whenever you comment on how, well, the economy is going to be something which is actually systematically codified or is actually accurately codified, because if you take some evaluation of one side of the conjunct, etc., yeah, that's only true if we assume that LEM, and if we grant that the other side of disjunct, at least when it comes to this specific debate, not the truth table evaluation point, but rather me actually considering the other side of conjunct, that's only going to be something which is relevant if it's even possible. That other side of conjunct is even possible. If it's the case that everything is instantiated by some set in which captures all these contingent beings, then all the contingent beings has some metaphysical law in which allows for the causal power between themselves, which is also going to be contingent. You fucking retard. In response to everything else, whenever you comment on how it's analytically true, yeah, it's only analytically true if we exhaust the conceptual schema that you have. But the conceptual schema is not supposed to grasp God's existence. It's supposed to justify God's existence within reality. So it's the case that the conceptual schema is able to capture his existence, but it has to capture his existence in a meaningful way. The semantical reduction has to be mind independent. We're not talking about just God's existence. We're talking about God's existence in a specific mode. What is that mode, someone may ask? It's the mode in which is ontic. You have to justify that he exists independent of the mind, not mind dependently. So the analyticity relative to the external explanation and how it has to exist outside the modal profile or outside of its own modal set, that's going to be something which is irrelevant if I could just say that reality is built up in a way in which allows for the infinite explanation of things within a specific modal set, or in other words, a specific modal profile, or in other words, a specific modal capture. Meaning that although analytically P1 might be talking about some other type of conclusion, or analytically P1 might be talking about some other type of criteria, it would be deemed irrelevant considering what the burden is currently speaking. In response to everything else, I'm not sure if the conclusion actually successfully connects given the argument. And then alongside that, I'm not even sure if any of the justifications that you gave towards the original P1s are going to be something which, I apologize, the original P1, and then also P2 is going to be something which actually connects. It seems as if all you're doing is blundering and going in circles. So look, let me do something for you. I'm going to hold your hand for the next point, and I'm going to hope that you track everything that was said. So if you have a question, I may be fine with actually answering it in chat, but not during my time of speaking, because I'm not going to waste my time amping you. Because unfortunately, that's what I'm already doing. retard. If you can't track, say that. Don't comment on how I'm speed talking. No, that's not what's happening. It's just that you don't understand basic speech. My speech is way better than yours. Kylo, focus up. Auggz, you just stay in the background and listen so you can get amped.
Are we unmuted?
Yeah, I mean, so I got some of what he said down there. So first he said, if it's the case I don't grant there's some issue with the modal machinery, then I can object to P1. But again, what P1 says isn't talking about. Look, if we just hone in on P1 itself, right? What P1 isn't talking about is what types of explanations are warranted, okay? And that's what you keep going back to. No one is talking about the types of explanations for which are warranted or not warranted, right? We're saying the thing that we're picking out, the ameliorative, stipulative definition, by the way, for an external explanation, could only be true if a necessary thing was possible, right? And then, okay, the other thing he said, it's not going to be relevant to what exists in reality. Again, P1 isn't commenting about reality, so I don't see why we would have to justify anything about, the metaphysical domain. Our argument is using logical modalities. Seems just like sort of an equivocation there. And then when he says it allows for an explanation for the set, sure, it could be logically possible that, that a set is explained self-referentially. But again, that's not what premise one says. It just says if it was an external explanation by the stipulative definition we're using, then a necessary thing must be possible, right? Kylo, I don't know if you picked up on anything else he said.
Yeah, I got a few things. So I want to recap premise one just for the rec and the judges listening. Premise one states, if no necessary being is possible, and if possibly there exists a contingent thing, then it cannot have an external explanation, right? The contingent thing cannot have an external explanation because if it were to have an external explanation, it'd have to be that necessary being. It's very simple. Yeah, I don't know why he keeps blabbering about premise one. So then he says, why is the modal profile? Oh, I already read that. He says he rejects the law of excluded middle. Okay. Once again, like I don't know if he thinks being epistemically bankrupt, asking questions, or stating I reject X, Y, and Z is going to make him win the debate. It's not. Nevertheless, you can actually be one which is a diatheist or be one which doesn't accept LEM, and the argument still goes through, right? It's logically possible that the argument goes through and LEM doesn't exist, right? So the argument doesn't require LEM. That's not needed for the argument to go through. So your denial of that is irrelevant, you fucking retard. He
I mean, Kylo, we
says,
could just say the
what happened?
majority of academics. We could also just say the majority of academics. The majority of academics and philosophers holding to LEM is going to be prima facie justification to hold to something like this.
Yeah, that's totally fine too. Yeah, the judges can flag that. And then he said the conjunction is only true under LEM. Okay, well now look for the recording. Infinity has now made the positive claim within the debate. He's made the claim that the conjunction only holds under the law of excluded middle. Okay, that's going to be your burden. You have now that burden to substantiate that claim. What's going to be the contradiction in the conjunction holding and LEM not being true? Okay, I hope he responds to that. And then he said the analytics shouldn't bake in God's existence. Okay, you fucking dumbass retard. The analytics given external explanation don't bake in God's existence, you dumb fuck. All external explanation is the type of explanation where the explanans and the explanandum are not of the same modal class. Now, nothing of the definition is there bake in the concept of God, you fucking dumb fuck. So go over that point. And then he says, show he exists mind independently. And then, yeah, so given that the argument is valid and sound, you want to say, okay, how does this get you to God exists in mind independently? But look, you want to say a necessary being is one exists in all possible worlds. Now, you want to say there's a possible world where there is no minds. Okay, now there's a possible world where there is no minds, that this being still instantiated, then this being exists mind independently. So respond to that point. And then he said he's not sure if the conclusion connects, but you being epistemically bankrupt, dumb bitch, holds no bearing to if it does connect, right? And then like when you say connect, that's not clear. I don't know if you're using like what type of theory argumentation you're using when you say if it connects, you're gonna have to justify that or justify the question in the sense that you furtherly expound on what you're asking and you're not sure if it connects, right? And then I'm pretty sure when you answer that question, that's gonna get some more burdens put on your ass. But I want to be very clear for the recording and for the judges so far. What we've done is levy the argument. We've went through each premise. Our opponent has basically just said, I don't know why I should accept this and that and that. He hasn't deployed any attacks, no anti-counter arguments, but only epistemic bankruptcy, which we've responded to all the questions. Now, if there's any objections that we haven't typed out, then I'm pretty sure we'll get that on the next cross-examination. But so far, we've met our burden and we responded to the objections. So that's going to be evidence in favor of us currently winning the debate. But nevertheless, you can
Well,
go ahead and
time's up.
speak.
Time's up. Yo, Infinity, you're unmuted, bro.
Yeah, thanks, man. Look, that rhetoric is so terrible. I'm sorry. This is the worst rhetoric I ever heard. You know what, Auggz? You're pretty nice, so I'm not really going to comment on you. I'm just going to put you in the background in the cuck chair while I destroy Kylo. But let me respond to some of the things that were said by both real quick. One, I'm not sure if it's valid or sound. That was the original point that I was making when it comes to its lack of connectiveness. Additionally speaking, when it comes to the external explanation, talking about some independent modal profile, the entire point is I don't grant that there exists some independent modal profile. So the relevance of P1 is going to be disregarded, is going to be disqualified. It's not that I'm not tracking what P1 is attempting to comment on. It's just that, one, I do object to P1 for one. Secondly speaking, I just don't see that P1 is relevant. I'm not sure how P1 is relevant. You commenting on how there may exist some epistemic bankruptcy is going to be something which is relevant, considering that I'm not epistemically bankrupt. None of my behavior at all or thus far has justified any epistemic bankruptcy because I know that you're retarded. So obviously there are knowledge, or I possess, there are epistemic facts in which I possess. I know you're retarded. I know Auggz is a terrible debater. I know that your rhetoric is terrible. I know that your tier list is terrible. I know that your server is terrible. I understand that you're a broke bitch. I know a lot of things. So it's obviously the case I'm not epistemically bankrupt. When it comes to these questions that I'm asking, in other words, when I say I'm not sure of X, that's going to be a statement that's distinct from the question, which is, can you justify X? However, I'm using those two things to hold the same implication of value. I'm using those to posit some lack of knowledge towards the premises being true or towards the points being true. When it comes to that type of relativistic epistemic bankruptcy, which is what I think you meant to say, it is the case that those are going to be challenges to the truth of the premises, because I'm not sure if they are true. I want you to grant and motivate that they're true to me or the judges. So whenever you comment on how, well, epistemic bankruptcy is not going to be justification as to why there exists an attack relation or there exists premises being false, yeah, but you haven't justified why they're true. I'm not sure if they are true. Nobody is sure if they are true. You need to justify that they are true. When it comes to the scholars, or I apologize, when it comes to the people that you're using to warrant the laws of thought or the LEM, for example, under a hypothesis, I apologize, under most hypotheses in which people propose, there does exist an expectation for the laws of thought to accurately match or depict what's truth in reality. So because there's expectation, it seems as if people accept the laws of thought. But does that mean that the laws of thought should be accepted? Is prima facie justified, or is something which is likely? No, not at all. You need to explain why prima facie justification is something which is going to be relevant in this type of debate, alongside the fact that I'm not sure if these scholars or if these specific people or this specific type of population is going to be representative of the likelihood as to why the LEM is true, accepted, or anything. I'm not sure why there's actually even going to be prima facie justification. Using this specific population in which has or may have biasness, given that all of their hypotheses expects the laws of thought or requires the laws of thought to actually be coherent, that seems to just be biased. I'm not sure if that's actually representative of the population, which if it's not representative of the population, it doesn't increase any likelihood and it doesn't provide actual evidence. In response to everything else, when it comes to the burden that I have regarding the LEM and the dichotomy, it follows that obviously the claim that I made is that if the LEM doesn't hold, then it follows that the dichotomy is not going to be dichotomous. Yeah, that's true, because if the LEM is saying that there is either a choice between A or B, there's no in between, it follows that there would be an in between, meaning that whenever you make a dichotomy, whenever you say it's A or B, because di means two, you fucking retards, the dichotomy is option between two things. If the LEM is false, that means that it isn't just between those two things. It could also be a middle ground, at least, meaning that at least this three is a trichotomy, you fucking retard. So that's analytically true. And even independent of that burden, that doesn't justify that the dichotomy is going to be something which actually leads towards the other side when it comes to its possible necessity. I don't grant that. When it comes to the mind argument for the possible worlds, that seems to go circular. I'm putting into question whether or not necessities are possible in the first place, and all you did was, well, there's a possible world where there doesn't exist any bond. I'm not sure if the possible worlds actually instantiates the capacity for necessity. I'm not sure if that thing can exist actually in the possible world. So that's going to be something which goes circular, at least when it comes to your mind argument. In response to everything else, yes, there does exist an objection to P1. You're going to want to say either or. That's going to be presupposition towards the laws of thought. There was no argument as to why the laws of thought are true. He commented on how, well, do you think asking all these questions or rejecting yeah, just to clarify for everybody in VC so they can know why I'm asking all these questions, all he needs to do to justify God exists is explain why there exists some necessity within fucking reality in all these possible worlds. That is obviously not controversial. So he's using this non-controversial view, thinking that he's going to look good, even though he's still getting embarrassed. So that's why I'm asking all these questions, which are definitely relevant. It's the case that if you don't justify anything in respect to the burdens that you have, because obviously there's a burden of proof on you, then it follows that obviously you're not going to win, because it doesn't seem as if your argument actually follows, at least in a sound way. In response to everything else, whenever you talk about the argument and how you explain all the premises and you justify all the premises, it seems to be that all the premises do, if I were to grant your points, which I don't grant that it's even valid, but if I were to grant this, it seems to be that all the argument does is semantically reduce God. But a semantical reduction for God does not justify his ontic existence. I need some justification for an ontic status, you fucking retard. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, bro, but he was like 10 seconds over time. So
Oh yeah, she's a yapper. Oh, let's get Auggz
I mean,
unmuted.
look, let me respond to the LEM point real quick. So he had a contention with my sort of probabilistic justification, my prima facie justification. He actually said, I don't know why prima facie justification would be relevant. Well, because if I'm prima facie justified in believing X because of some evidence, then that's going to be good reason to believe in that thing. If we take the hypothesis 1, where the LEM doesn't hold, and then hypothesis 2, where it does hold, and we assume the principle of indifference on the priors, and then we update on literally 90% of academia holding to this view, obviously we're going to update on the conditional, and that's going to be some sort of justification to hold to the LEM. Okay, so the other thing he said is, I'm not sure if the argument is valid or sound. Well, yeah, obviously, dumb fuck. Like, I don't even know what that's responding to specifically. And then the other thing he said was, I don't see how P1 is relevant. Well, P1 is relevant because of what we mean by external explanation. So us sort of defining external explanation, that premise is going to carry over to the other premises. And if it is the case that, it's not possible that a contingent thing has an external explanation, then a necessary thing couldn't be the explanation for that, right? And premise 2 obviously just leads from premise 1. So look, I don't know if Kylo has anything. Most of that was like meta yap from Infinity, but yeah.
Yeah, I want to be clear. Yeah, it was a lot of meta yap, and then he thinks it sounds good when he does that, and like the audience are really captured. But let's go through what he says. So he started off just with the rhetoric, saying that I had bad rhetoric, and then started pointing out that he knows a lot of things. That was kind of weird. And then he said he's agnostic on the truth and the soundness, or he's agnostic on the soundness and the validity. Nevertheless, that's not pertinent. I don't like, why should I care about you being agnostic on the truth or in the validity? I personally take some abstract Dawn theory argumentation, so that none of that even require for me to give an argument doesn't require all that validity and sound talk. So that's a response to that. You could tell me why should I care about all that bullshit. And then he says he doesn't agree there exists a modal profile. I don't know what's being said there. You don't agree there exists a modal profile, yet a modal profile is being instantiated in the dialectic.
Yeah, I
Simply
sort
in
of want to
virtue.
know what he means by existence there, because obviously if he's talking about some like concrete existence, our argument doesn't even commit to
Yeah.
that. So
So he said he's not clear on why should think there exists a modal profile. Yeah, definitely get clean up on what it means to exist in this context. But the mere fact that we're utilizing it is gonna be evidence and justification for it existing. And then let's see, he says he's not sure. Oh, all he means when he say he's not sure is can you justify X. So every time he says I'm not sure why I should accept X, Y, and Z, all that really translates to is can you justify X? Well, obviously when you say can you do something, obviously it's logically possible, but just give me your theory of justification, and then
well,
under
and
your theory of
also real quick,
justification.
just to sort of like put everything in sort of a cluster, here's what you need to do, Infinity. You need to tell me why my justification for the LEM doesn't go through after I gave you the new justification. You need to explain why ameliorative definitions are the types of things that you can even reject if it's being stipulated. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you don't hold like the analytic synthetic distinction there. I don't know. You got to flesh that out. And then you have to object to one of the premises with an argument or with some sort of actual critique in your response.
Okay, and then he said the mine objection was circular. Okay, that's another burden you have. What's going to be the justification for the mine objection being circular? Because all is being said on the mine objection talk, or why I think this being exists mine independently, is just to say you can literally build a model, and where the model is one where it potentially has no mines in it. But then take it to be the case the necessary being exists in all possible worlds, the necessary being what exists in the world with no mind. So when you say that's circular, justify that claim. He then said, why should I think a necessary being is possible? That just means you haven't been listening, dumbass bitch. The reason you should believe a necessary being is possible is in virtue of premise 2. Premise 2 states a contingent thing possibly have an external explanation. The external explanation is that said necessary being. Now, we could justify this given the conjunctive truth table, you dumb bitch. The conjunctive truth, what it means to be possible is that in at least one evaluation, the proposition is outputted as true. That's analytically true. Now, unless you have some other means a possibility which you want to get clear on, you can go there, but that would be equivocation given the arguments. He says it seems he just talked a lot about his seemings. I don't give a fuck about your seemings. He said the argument doesn't ground ontic status. Okay, what does it mean to be ontically committing? What does it mean to exist ontically? Answer that question, and then I'll give you.
All right, I cut Infinity off for the same thing, bro. You guys went over time.
Bro, stop letting people go over time, or there's no point of the timer. One, when it comes to ontic existence, oh my god, you're so fucking retarded. Stop interrupting me. When it comes to ontic existence, that's just talking about my independent existence. I already gave a definition. When it comes to the definition of consideration that you wanted me to justify, I don't need to explain why your definitional consideration isn't something which works Auggz. That's up to you. You need to justify why it's going to be something which is going to be accepted. The argument being established in the way that you believe it's establishing does not actually give any motivation or justification. Additionally speaking, when it comes to the theory of justification, look, it can be any conventional theory of justification. I could take a foundationalist and still ask for justification or request for justification of any of the premises, and there not be presented any justification, there not be any justification present. It can be any conventional type of theory of justification. When it comes to the contingency, I'm saying I don't grant the modal profile independent or the modal category independent of the possible contingencies. Are you fucking retarded? So it's not just talking about some modal background, which is going to be instantiated by a dialectic, which I don't even grant. We're having a dialectic, we're having an heuristic debate. I'm just trying to win. But I'm not granting, or I'm not talking about just some modal profile overall. You weren't tracking that point. Fucking retard. I'm talking about the foundationalist potency type of modal profile. When it comes to everything else, with the definition of existence, whenever I talk about existence, the necessary condition for existence is going to be some meaningful semantical reduction. That's going to be the meta-ontological view that I'm talking about. I want you to justify your argumentative theory. I'm not sure why that's going to be something which is relevant towards disregarding the questions, because seemingly the questions are going to hold to some burden, because obviously you also, performatively speaking, grant that there exist burdens that are derived from questions. You're doing the same thing. So it's going to be performatively justified that questions are going to be something which are relevant when it comes to specific types of objections. In addition to everything else, we're talking about the exclusion of God. Are you dumbass? Are you retarded? When it comes to the evidence that you gave relative to the prima facie point in Auggz, make sure you listen closely. When it comes to the evidence that you gave in regards to the prima facie point, you're going to want to say that you have good reason to believe in X, which is obviously going to lead to some epistemic appropriate belief. Maybe you're stupid, but I already excluded the reason, or I apologize, the evidence that you gave. I explained under some hypothesis that I gave why it's going to be expected that the evidence fails in a specific way. So I'm not sure if the evidence is going to be something which is actually relevant, considering my own explanation of the evidence or my own possible explanation of evidence, which I'm not going to repeat. That's something which you need to do. You need to track the principle of indifference because of that explanation of the good quote unquote evidence. The quote unquote good evidence is going to be something which also does not hold here currently speaking, because you're going to want to say that they're equal, and then because they're not equal anymore because of this presented good evidence, it follows that your hypothesis is going to be scaled above. However, considering that I explained the evidence and how they don't actually hold to, or how the evidence doesn't justify that they actually hold to this type of belief, it's going to be the case that the principle of indifference is kind of irrelevant in this conversation, and it goes back to 1 to 1 or 0 to 0. You're fucking retarded, or 0.5. But in response to everything else, we're talking about a relevant ontic status. So that's going to be going off of the meaningful semantic reduction. In response to everything else, whenever you comment on how P1 is talking about a particular establishment, I don't think you're understanding at all. The entire point is that even though in respect to your own conceptual schema, this argument may be valid, it's the case that you still have to instantiate his existence ontically speaking, or mind independently speaking. So let's say there exists some semantical reduction, because obviously God is able to be semantically reduced. That's what I'm saying the argument is attempting to do. That's what this argument is attempting to do, this KG quote unquote retarded argument. However, it fails to do it meaningfully speaking. Is it the case that he ontically exists, or he exists mind independently? No, not in virtue of this argument. None of the premises seemingly actually justified there being a possible necessity. All you did was assert P1 and P2 again, which I don't grant any of them. There was no justification for P1 or P2, because I don't grant that there exists a possible explanation outside the modal profile, because I don't grant that there are states of affairs in which allows for that type of potency. I want you to prove that. That's what's in question. You just went circular. When it comes to me explaining why your point went circular, regarding the necessity and possible world instantiation, that's not up to me, that's up to you. You're flipping the burden because you realize you can't justify your point, and then you try to give an explanation of the point again. Explain why I didn't go viciously circular, my nigga. You're fucking retarded as fuck. Seemingly speaking, it just presupposes some compatibility thesis between the possible worlds and the necessity. When it comes to the mind, I don't think that type of stipulation, when it comes to both the original stipulation we're talking about with the definition of explanation and now, and then also when it comes to the possible world stipulation relative to the explanation of necessities, at least being instantiated within the possible worlds, it just seems all to go circular, because you're presupposing that just because there exists some thought experiment that entails that there exists some modal machinery independent of the original modal profile that I already grant. The original modal profile that I grant is going to be the positivist type of view. I don't grant any necessity. That's what's in question. So nothing that you said actually is justified, putting everything you said in the question. I'm not even sure what you mean by logical modality. Whenever you comment on how something is logically possible, seemingly that's going to be reliant on the laws of thought. Something is logically possible if and only if it's the case that it coheres to the laws of thought. But I don't grant the laws of thought, so that's kind of meaningless to me. None of the evidence that you gave seemingly actually entails the likelihood or the acceptance rate of the laws of thought, which includes the LEM. It seems to be the case that the evidence that you gave is excluded outside of your hypothesis, given some explanation towards the evidence, meaning that it follows that nothing that you said actually entails your conclusion. Okay? The truth tables are also going to be based upon some foundationalist principle granted by the laws of thought. So the truth table is not going to work when it comes to your evaluation. It just seems like nothing that you're doing is actually relevant. And also the consideration is going to be from the judge. We don't have to care about your consideration. Also, you saying that you don't care about my consideration is going to be relevant because I'm trying to talk to the judge, not you. When it comes to the good evidence, like I said, that's already going to be something which is irrelevant given the explanation and exclusion that I gave. And finally, it just seems like you went circular the entire time. With the compatibility, I need some argument for your justification theory and your argumentative theory, which you tried to repeat. I don't know why you did that. That seems really retarded. I don't agree with any of that, man.
My theory.
Yeah, I mean, the smoothie slash Ernest clone is doing really poorly right now. So let me make just, I'll respond to a couple things he said. So he's asking like why he should accept the stipulation in premise one. Well, that could just be simple. So we don't equivocate on terms. Again, it's ameliorative. So I'm not exactly sure what you're even rejecting there. If you think that ameliorative stipulations are the type of thing which is a tool, then I'm not even sure what it means for you to reject what we're saying there. And then you said, I don't grant the modal profile independent of possible contingencies. Well, that's good. That's good, Infinity, because we're talking about possible contingencies. Holy shit. And then your definition of existence was mind independent existence. I could just ask you again, what does existence mean? And then you addressed my LEM point, my point about why it's more probable to accept LEM. Well, again, when you say, well, I already had an explanation, your explanation was that people are conditioned to believe this thing because of the amount of people that believe it. It doesn't explain why the amount of people believe it, right? So if we just say, okay, humans have truth tracking faculties, when you give them specific research tools in a specific domain, they're more able to track truth. So the fact that logicians and philosophers specifically hold to LEM is going to be evidence, right? Obviously, your explanation doesn't even explain what's attempting to be explained there. And then he says, I don't see how reality grants potency. That doesn't really matter. We could still just hold to modal semantics without it being somewhere in reality. So if that was a response to premise two, I don't know what that's really supposed to be responding to. And then, yeah, I'll let Kylo take it away from here.
Oh, this is like dog. I ain't gonna lie. This nigga's dog shit game. I listened to his response and I'm so glad I typed it all out because he repeated himself maybe 3 times on the same point, maybe to exhaust his 4 minutes. I don't think it's productive to like really want to exhaust your full 4 minutes. Just try to be as concise as possible. But that was a bunch of yappage bullshit. And then let's be clear, I'm gonna go over all the bullshit, but the bullshit he's spouting, not attacks to the argument, not defeaters, just pure epistemic bankruptcy. Oh, why should I accept X, Y, and Z? I don't believe X, Y, and Z. Just a bad fucking look. So he said what it means to ontic existence is mind independent. So once again, right, all is being said here is, look, I want you to type this down, you dumb bitch. Is there a possible world where there is just no mind? Is it the case that you said, well, even if I were to accept the whole argument, why should I think the argument is one that's ontically committed? All right, bitch ass nigga. So if you were to accept the argument and you asked the question, or it's not even asked the question, is it the fact of the matter that if you accept the whole argument, the necessary being in all possible worlds, it exists in all possible worlds? The answer is yes. The next question is there a possible world where there is no mind? The answer is yes. Therefore follows that in a possible world, there's no mind to being exists. That means the being exists mind independently, dumb bitch. Um, he said he doesn't grant independent modal class. He doesn't grant independent modal class. I don't know what it means for a modal class to be independent. I don't know. Auggz, do you know what's being said there?
Well, look, what he actually said was, I don't grant there's a modal profile independent of possible contingencies, but that's fine because that's literally what the premise is talking about. It's talking about possible contingencies. Okay, and then again, yeah, his definition was circular because we're asking what he means by existence, and then he says mind independent existence. Yeah, just specifying on the type of existence isn't going to tell us what existence means there. And then, yeah, he didn't really address what I said in LEM in his first response because I already explained why his explanation doesn't explain anything.
Look,
well,
let me get a few other things out.
because most people believe it. Like that doesn't
So
explain why they believe it.
he then said, I don't accept the laws of thought. Okay, you not accepting the laws of thought, how does that defeat the argument? You haven't shown, right? You made the claim the argument requires the laws of thought. Simply making that claim is not going to be reasons to believe that to be true. What's going to be the establish the derivation relation? So give a supplementary argument to say if the argument goes through the laws of thought are true, or the laws of thought require, or the argument requires the laws of thought, and then explicate on the laws of thought. What's being said there, right? But you want to say the argument requires the laws of thought and you don't accept the laws of thought. Therefore, we have a problem. But that's nothing more than a claim. He said he needs me to justify my theory of argumentation. No, why would I be dialectically obligated to justify my theory of argumentation? all that needs to be done within the debate is for us to prove that God exists, which
We
we've
could
done so
also
far.
just take like the classical logician view on what an argument is, the Aristotelian structure with inference rules, and we
Well,
can use
I
the same
said I was using
justification I use for Eliam.
some Dung's argumentation theory right now within the
Oh,
debate. But
okay, it's some fucking bullshit. But hey, anyways,
and then but I don't. How much time do I have left? Mod. Yo, moderator.
yo, bro, this mod, bro.
He used the rest of his time to ask me how long there was left, but that's lucky from his fuck. But anyway.
Yeah, one, this is so bad. Everybody realize how shitty Auggz is. This is so terrible. Sit in the background, Auggz, please. I don't want to do you this dirty. What Auggz just did is potentially contradict his own teammates' view by talking about an Aristotelian model, the conventional model, the classical model, even though his own teammate already gave some type of model that he's using. It's so sad that he can't even track his own teammates' debate prowess, his own teammates' points. It's sad. How is he supposed to track my points if he can't even track his own teammates' points? This is embarrassing. When it comes to the incompatibility with the argumentative theory, obviously there's going to be something which is existence. So if we take some Aristotelian model, that's going to be something which contradicts the original model, because I do believe that there exists some incompatibility when it comes to its restricted landscape. Additionally speaking, whenever you comment on the question, which is the following, why is it the case that I need to justify my argumentative theory? There obviously going to be some burden or else I just dismiss it. He just raised it. There's going to be something which is kind of irrelevant. When it comes to the dismissal because of the hitch and razor in which exists, you obviously made the claim. Performatively speaking, you also grant that obviously claims which are made require justification, considering every single time you try to put a burden on me, you say, well, you just tried to make the presupposition or the claim, meaning that's going to be something which is relevant, performatively speaking, even something that you agree with, intuitively speaking. When it comes to everything else, you said you explained why the P1, I apologize, premise one is already going to be something which instantiates the potent capacity. That's going to be something which is in question. I'm not talking about, and by the way, maybe you didn't fucking hear my meta-ontological view is not talking about just the mode of existence. I already gave my meta-ontological view, and I just specified the mode of existence directly after. So you can track what I was originally said. So I'm going to just not repeat that because I don't want to help you. I'm not holding your hand. I'm holding Kylo's hand. Your hands are kind of dirty. You just ate canes given my profile, so I don't really want to touch your hands. When it comes to the independent modal profile or modal category that's talking about the necessities, I guess even Auggz is able to track that. It's kind of sad. Like, it's their ability to switch between brain cells. It's like for one point, Auggz has the brain cell, and for the secondary point, Kylo has the brain cell. Like, it's so fucking embarrassing. How is that even possible? Now, in response to everything else, I already told you what existence I'm coming on. I want to keep on reestablishing that for the judge. I already told him what I mean by existence, the necessary condition for existence. It seems to be the case that God doesn't qualify for the necessary condition of existence. When it comes to the mind argument that he gave, I'm not sure if that follows. I want him to prove that that follows alongside that is the case. And by the way, yes, the type of debate we're having does require some argumentative theory as a format. But when it comes to the mind argument that he gave, originally speaking, that instantiates the necessity of God, mind, independently speaking, it follows that the class is not going to be something which exists. In reality, that argument is only going to follow one if we grant the laws of thought. And I already explained why that's going to be true, because then I can say that there exists some possible explanation independent of the modal profile, and it also exists the lack of a possible explanation independent of the profile. And I can say that it's explained by this independent modal profile, even though you're going to want to say that it's impossible for it to be explained outside this independent modal profile. So it's the case that God wouldn't exist because there exists this contradiction, rather. So yes, your argument requires the laws of thought, you fucking retard. The economy, I explained why it requires the laws of thought. When it comes to synthetic and analytical justification, I grant that there is a distinction between the two, at least when it comes to synthetic truths and this analytical truths. But the entire point is whether or not the P premises derive the analyticity in a reflexive way, and then also the synthetic truths or synthetic justification in a relevant way. Maybe you're fucking retarded. You need to understand that, you dumbass bitch. Okay? In response to everything else, like for example, the philosophers or the academics, etc. I'm not going to repeat the point. I did give the exclusion. I did give an explanation towards why they accept this data, but it's going to be the case that you didn't hear it, you didn't track it, so I'm not going to repeat that. That's why the principle of indifference wouldn't apply to this scenario, specifically when it comes to scaling your position above mine's, hypothesis-wise. But when it comes to the truth tracking, they're truth tracking because of the specific data in which they're accounting for. Whenever you comment on how they all accept this type of theses, the reason why they accept it is because of what I originally said, which I'm not going to repeat for you. They may hold to it because of the original point. It's going to be an equal interpretation. I'm not sure if your interpretation of why they hold the hypothesis, given, I apologize, why they hold this specific data or this particular data, given the domain of truth tracking, is going to be something in which actually fits under your interpretation. You need to justify the likelihood for your interpretation, because seemingly you just went circular on that fucking point. I gave my own interpretation of why that's going to be something which is accepted under your own hypothesis, and which you didn't justify a response to, you didn't actually respond to at all. Yes, I was talking about validity of particular premises. I'm not sure if they are valid. I'm talking about semantic reduction when it comes to the validity, at least in respect to if they were valid. I don't grant this particular point. So whenever you question on, well, when you say hypothetically, well, if you grant the points are valid, then you're obviously going to have to justify, or you're obviously going to have to grant the points are true, or the argument is true. I don't think you understood what that was in respective to. I'm talking about it being valid in terms of a semantical reduction type of issue. So I'm saying, yes, he's semantically reduced, but the mind argument is only true if and only if there exists a compatibility thesis. But I don't get that there exists a compatibility thesis, you fucking retard. So nothing that you said actually addresses anything. You didn't explain how you didn't go circulate. It just seems as if all the burdens are on you. There's no reasonable basis for the skepticism that you're proposing to me. It just seems as if everything is going circular for you. You talking about how you don't care about my statements is kind of irrelevant because I'm using my statements to convince the judges, not you. Hopefully Archie and the other two judges watch this debate and realize that you got destroyed badly because this is clearly what's going.
That nigga sure know how to talk. All right, Auggz, you want to take it first, twin?
Yeah, I
Let me
mean,
know.
so the first point, I want to know why Dung's abstract theory of argumentation and a classical view are mutually exclusive in the sense that you can't think both are, truth can do, or yeah, you don't think both can track the proposition. I don't know why those would be incompatible. He would need to justify why that's even a blunder. Yeah, Kylo, that's the only point I wanted to address. You can take it.
Okay, so this is bad, and I don't know. I feel like he actually might think he's looking good. I'm sorry to tell you, you're not. Yeah, he did make the claim that their fucking chemistry's fucked. They were contradicting each other. No, Auggz literally said we can take X view. He literally prefaced it with the modal verb can. He said we can take this theory argumentation. He didn't say we are taking this theory argumentation. So he didn't contradict me. Let's just clear up that fucking blunder from you. You didn't hear it, you dumb bitch. That's the response to that point. And like we're so deep into the meta, the shit's sad. We're talking about is it the case that a necessary being exists and all this bitch ass nigga want to do is yap. I want to like if we need to go over any premise, you can tell us which premise you directly denied, but you haven't denied a premise. Let's go through some more points. He said, yeah, he made the claim both the theories are incompatible. So Dong's abstract theory argumentation and the Aristotelian view of argumentation, he's making the claim that they're mutually exclusive. So that's another burden you have. Yeah, I mean, you have so many fucking burdens that you might be unaware of. This shit's just getting bad for you, my nigga. Tighten the fuck up. And then he made the claim God doesn't qualify the conditions for existence, but notice how he never defined existence implicita, right? We've been asking for that. What is existence
Yeah, hold on.
simplicity?
That's something I want to flag, right? Every time he's stuck on something and he can't give an answer, he just said that he already said it and he's not going to repeat it. Again, I actually went through his explanation for the LEM and why it doesn't hold, and then he never responded to that. He just said he's not repeating it. I just
No,
wanna
he has a
flag
lot of he has a lot of burdens he might be unaware of. But nevertheless, the judges are tracking all this, my nigga. He says, "Oh, I'm not looking to convince you. I'm looking to convince the judges. You're doing a poor job." And then he said he made the claim God wouldn't exist in virtue of a contradiction. He just makes like in his cross exams, he doesn't say substantive shit. He spouts out a bunch of claims. You need to do this. You need to do that. And I don't hold to this and I don't hold to that. You're not really saying shit pivotal. You're not criticizing a fucking premise, but he did let it come out of his mouth that God doesn't exist in virtue of contradiction. Now, that claim was not justified. What's going to be the contradiction? What's the P not P? Hope to hear that on your next cross.
And again, I already addressed the laws of thought thing. Like the same reason to accept the laws of thought is the same reason to accept the LEM. And unless your dumbass is going to repeat whatever explanation you had, which by the way I already addressed, then I don't know what you're going to do there.
Okay.
Because the same motivation for the laws of thought are the same motivation for the LEM.
He said, "Why should I accept validity? We're not using any normative talk within the debate. I don't know what, like, why is that even relevant? Why should I accept? Or no, I'm sorry. I'm fucking so sorry. He told us to give the validity in there, and the question there is why is the validity talk relevant given the theory argumentation being used, right? That's the response to him talking about the validity talk. And then he did some stuttering over his words. I had to type that down because he was just yapping. He said, do the premises derive the analyticity? That's fucking retarded. Premises premises don't derive analyticity, dumb bitch. Like I know he thinks he sounds good, but he just says stupid shit. And I'm so glad I'm
We can
typing it
just
all
take a
out.
stipulative view on analytic truths where it's just what we mean by the word, right? And again, I already asked him what it even means to reject that, and he never answered that either. What does it even mean to reject a linguistic device that's just being used to stipulate something? What does that even mean, Infinity? Explain that.
And look, I gotta get this last point out. He never responded to the point where I said, "Look, is it the case there are possible worlds with no minds?" He said, "I can accept the whole argument, but don't think that that being is ontologically committing. And all it means to be ontologically committing is that you exist mind independently. Given your definition of at least onto commitment, it is the case that we've satisfied the burden of what it means to exist, especially under your view, bitch ass nigga. Is it the case that there are possible worlds with no minds?" Once again, he said, I can accept the whole argument, but not believe it's honestly committing. The moment you accept the whole argument, bitch ass nigga, and you agree there are possible worlds with no minds, you've conceded, bitch ass nigga. But we can let him respond.
It's horrible.
This is actually so terrible, my nigga. Please mute him while I'm speaking. Thank you. I don't know why the moderation is taking so long, but when it comes to the chemistry announcement, yes, you guys have no chemistry. Let me respond to each shitty points. One, when it comes to the truth tracking, I never said it was incompatible in terms of the goal. So the goal of both DCs may be to truth track. Never said that it was incompatible when it comes to the goal or mutually exclusive when it comes to the goal. When it comes to the can that he tried to point out a blender for, obviously that's going to be some bulletic mode. So obviously that's going to implicatively be some bulletic mode. I'm not sure why that's going to be talking about some athletic statics. So that's obviously going to be something which doesn't follow. In response to everything else, saying, by the way, you were retarded. Saying that I'm not doing something doesn't mean that I'm not doing it. You need to justify why I'm not explaining either the points. When it comes to his response to me saying I already originally justified certain points or already instantiated certain points, yes, I keep on doing that. I already told you why. It's because I don't want to repeat points for retards so they can track. They can finally track. If I repeat it for a third time, obviously it's the case that you may think of a response towards it. I feel like what you guys are doing is not just the lack of tracking. I feel like you understand that you can't respond to certain points, so you just put it to the side and never respond to them. Or you have ChatGPT generate responses towards the points, which is why all the fucking current arguments you're giving are so fucking retarded. So yes, I'm going to give the points during my conclusion. I'm going to explain how you didn't actually address my response to the LEM and the scholars and the population when it comes to the representation, likelihood of prima facie or good evidence, whatever. I'm going to explain why that's going to be something which didn't respond to my point. You saying that you responded to my point doesn't mean you actually responded to my point for the judges. Real quick, I did give some type of definition or some meta-ontological view regarding existence. He didn't respond. When it comes to the compatibility, maybe you're retarded. When it comes to the analyticity in which is derived from the premises, you can derive analyticity from premises. You can use premises to derive analyticity. You can talk about premises in regards to analyticity. You can say that a premise is talking about, for example, like I can give an argument for God, and which is in regards to his nature. So I can say that my meta-ontological view is something in which is talking about meaningful semantical reduction. And then from that semantical reduction, which is going to be present, it's the case that God exists as the maximally causal being. And it follows obviously that he's a maximally causal being. If it follows from that, and this is just an example for the judges, if it follows that he's a maximum causal being, it cannot be mind dependent because that's incompatible with the features that he are mind dependent, because that's incompatible with the features that he possesses, therefore it has to be mind independent. So you can derive from analyticity, and which reflects the actual world, or in other words, ontic states of affairs within the world based upon the analytical criteria overall. If it is the case that a meta-ontological view is reflective of the semantical reduction, meaningfully speaking, it follows that if it is the case that he has a certain semantical reduction which is incompatible with some mind dependency, it follows that he has to be mind independent. So you can derive these these analytical truths from the premises in which exist. Okay, I'm not sure why he said that. I never made the claim that God doesn't exist in virtue of a contradiction. I said that from a contradiction, it may be the case that God doesn't exist or the argument doesn't work because of the reliance that it has on the laws of thought, or even independent of my justification when it comes to the reliance that it has on the laws of thought. It follows that there can still be some contradiction which instantiates the non-existence of God. So you have to justify why he exists. When it comes to the mind shit, you're going to want to say that obviously God is necessary given the argument, and there exists a lack of a mind in a singular possible world, or in a possible world, and God is necessary, so he exists in all those possible worlds. That already presupposes the possibilist necessity. I don't grant the possibilist necessity. That's the point of contention. Whether or not there exists a necessity and potency, fucking retarded. Whether or not there exists some possible necessity, whether or not it's possible. I'm not sure what it means for something to be logically possible, given that I don't grant logical modality in in respect to the laws of thought. When it comes to stipulation, maybe you're fucking retarded. I'm talking about the stipulation in regards to the analyticity. Is it the case that, because obviously since premises can derive analyticity, given the example that I gave or the analogy that I gave, it follows that the stipulation is going to be based upon this analytical criterion, which I disagree with in consideration to its application to reality, because you're going to want to say that it's incompatible with him being mind independent. I apologize, him being mind dependent, because I'm saying that all this argument would do if it's valid. I apologize. Because I'm going to want to say that all this argument can do if it's valid is provide some semantic reduction, but it wouldn't be meaningful. So that's going to be something which exists outside of the meta ontology, given the analogy that I gave, you fucking retard. So it is the case that there can be stipulation. I disagree with the stipulation in terms of its application to reality, you fucking retard. You saying I didn't address points doesn't mean I didn't address points. When it comes to the analytical device, yeah, the analytical device can be something which is made effective given premises. That's something which I already clarified in response to everything else. I never said that it isn't valid. You didn't address the explanation that I gave. Man, Kylo and Auggz. This is very, very embarrassing, bro. Like, you are doing so bad. Do you guys want to conclude? Like, this is terrible. You didn't justify anything that you said. None of the premises. By the way, you think I haven't objected towards any of the premises. That's very false. That's how I know you're not fucking tracking. Because I objected towards all of the fucking premises. You're fucking retarded as fuck. Let's conclude, bro.
I think she started with a little bit more time on her hands this time. That's respectful. Can we get an unmute on my teammate? I don't think our time should be started.
He's not
Thank
muted,
you, bro. Jesus Christ. Okay.
Yes, he was.
Look. So there's a couple things I want to address there. If his meta-ontological view is just to have semantic reduction, then the devices we're using have semantic reduction, therefore it exists, you fucking retard. Okay, anyways, now to address the laws of thought. By the way, I already did this. Again, if I'm just saying, look, we assume the principle of indifference before we examine the evidence. Again, that's going to be talking about priors and background information. If we assume it, I'll say it again, before the evidence, and then we update on my evidence and your evidence, which, by the way, I already addressed why it isn't even evidence, right? Because it's inside the set of what we're trying to explain, right? So you saying, well, most people believe it because, they're sort of conditioned to believe it because of the amount of people that believe it. That obviously doesn't explain why the amount of people that do believe it actually believe it. And especially, the scholars and academics with the resources to research these things, still holding to this conclusion being true, right? Again, there's a reason he's not repeating the so-called evidence he said, because he's fucking stun-locked and he has no idea what he even said. Okay, so again, I addressed the meta-ontological point. I addressed the laws of thought thing. Kylo, did you have anything?
Okay, yeah. Much like his cross-examinations are filled with dog shit trash from the trash can. So let's all ask ourselves a question. Has this bitch-ass nigga defined existence impliciter? No. I was waiting on that. Nigga did not do that shit.
Well,
nigga
the fact
say,
that he did is actually worse, because he said all existence means is to have semantic
he said,
reduction.
look,
Which
he said
we
what
have.
it means to ontically exist, right?
Yes.
I don't know if he's making a distinction. The nigga's retarded. Yeah, given his definition of ontic existence, though, it trivially follows that God exists. He's a retard. He brought up some chat GPT bullshit, niggas projecting. He said we didn't respond to the LEM talk. That's false. I like in the debate, right? The niggas, I don't know, bro. It's kind of hard to
But
evaluate
look,
the
like after
bullshit.
this response, we definitely
Yeah,
can conclude when we're done.
yeah, we can conclude the ass beating is kind of getting repetitive. We're not making much progression. And then we'll go over the argument again in our conclusions. He said, good bitch ass nigga, you still didn't tell me why validity is relevant. Why is validity relevant in the debate? Bitch ass nigga never answered that.
Oh yeah, he also never responded to my stipulation point. Like, look, if we just take a view on analytic truths where it's literally just what the appraiser means by the word, then obviously you should accept it to avoid equivocation, right? And I already said why you should accept it, to
Hold
avoid
on.
equivocation.
I gotta get something out. So he said he doesn't know what logical possibility means here, but bitch ass nigga, if you were listening throughout the debate, I define logical possibility, and I already said what it means to be logically possible is that in at least one evaluation, a proposition is outputted as true, and that's analytically true, you dumbass nigger. So, let's be clear. That nigga's not tracking for things they don't understand that. He say, why should I accept it? What the fuck? Why you should do something holds no bearing to the argument being valid and sound, right? Under your theory argumentation, correct though, right? Is it valid and sound? Is that hold any bearing to if you should do something? We're not making any normative claims, you dumbass
Yeah,
nigga.
Kylo, let me know when you're done because I have another point, which is just that he said, "Oh yeah, I never said Dung's abstract theory and your theory were incompatible." Well, you did, because you said we contradicted each
Yeah,
other.
he's a
when it is
lying
the case
bitch.
that you can hold both views. You can just hold both views being conducive to truth.
Oh,
and obviously,
one
when
more.
we're talking about theories of argumentation, we're talking about what's conducive to truth.
Let me squeeze this in right quick. He said if the argument was valid, it would just provide a semantical reduction. He admitted it will provide a semantical reduction, but he said it's not meaningful. Okay, now extrapolate on what it means to be a meaningful semantical reduction rather than not. He must he just says shit, but he never justifies any claims. He just says this shit. The nigga's retarded. I ain't like the nigga's actually retarded as fuck.
Yeah, it's bad.
I told him define the laws of thought. He never defined the laws of thought. He didn't do. He not tracking his burdens. The bitch ass nigga not tracking what he got to do in the debate. He think he can sit back free and just blabber, nigga. No, you have burdens, fuck, nigga. He never defined that. He never defined existence. And I'm gonna just let him go so we can go back through the argument once more, so everybody know we met our burden. So we'll let this bitch ass
Wait, is
nigga
there just a way
respond.
we can go to closers? Like this can just be
No,
his
no,
conclusion, and
his
then we'll
bitch
go
ass. He
after.
likes to get last word. He's like one of those word like
Oh,
twinks.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
You can go ahead, Infinity.
Go ahead, Twink.
Bro, I ain't gonna lie, bro. Shut your bitch ass up. This nigga talking about twink, nigga. Yo, bro, I ain't gonna lie. You have the zestiest voice in the VC. Your voice is even more zesty than calm. I don't know what the fuck your ass talking about twink, nigga. Shut your bitch ass up, broke ass nigga. Now, anyways, when it comes to the semantical reduction, that wasn't my description of existence. You're fucking retarded. That wasn't my meta-ontological view. You can't track. Secondarily speaking, when it comes to the meaningful part that you're asking for, that's talking about metaphysical codification. It's meaningful if and only if the mode of existence implies metaphysical codification. If the mode of existence is talking about its ontic status. When it comes to the laws of thought are going to include the set. I apologize. The laws of thought are going to be the set of the law of non-contradiction, the law of identity, and the law of excluded middle. I'm not sure why I have to amp you on that. When it comes to the incompatibility point, I never said that they were. Maybe you're retarded. I never said I didn't make the claim that they were incompatible. I said I didn't make the claim that they were incompatible in terms of its goal. So it could be the case that both of these theories have the same goal, which is to truth track or something along the lines of that, but they still be incompatible. They're incompatible analytically given the methodology that they use. When it comes to like, you're so I ain't gonna lie, y'all niggas are so fucking ass, bro. Like, you just went circular when it comes to the logical modality. The determination of logical modality is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about what it means to be logically possible. All you just did is went circular when it comes to its motivational aspect or its evidential aspect. When it comes to everything else, oh my God, the validity is going to be something which soundness requires. Soundness is going to be talking about the truth of the premises in respect to the conclusion alongside the validity that it possesses. So if there's no validity, then it cannot be sound. Obviously, it's going to be relevant if it's the case that the argument is not fucking sound. Because one of the conditions out of multiple for soundness is going to be validity. You're fucking stupid. So you questioning why validity is going to be relevant to the debate is going to be something which is a blunder. That's obviously going to be stupid. When it comes to my methodological view, by the way, they keep on emphasizing the lack of chemistry they have as teammates. Is Mono in here? Please tell me that Mono's in here. I need an actual competent judge. Oh my God. Yo, Mono, type in chat, or if you're here, please, bro. Let me go to fucking chat real quick, bro. Oh my God. Or Curl. Yo, did you see the emphasis in the lack of chemistry between the two debaters whenever the nigga comments on how I gave some meta-ontological view or some necessary condition for existence, and then his teammate directly says I didn't give any meta-ontological view, I apologize, any meta-ontological view in some necessary condition or simplistic condition for existence, and then he just says I gave some ontic mode of existence. Thank you. You heard it. Thank you. Like, these dudes have no chemistry. One person tracks, the other person doesn't. And then another time, one person tracks, the other nigga doesn't. Like, the brain cell is jumping between each debaters. Like, one point, a nigga gets the brain cell, the other point, the nigga gets the brain cell. Nothing that they said is actual justification. When it comes to the goal of meta-ontology, it seems to be the case that my meta-ontological view is something in which actually actualizes that goal, considering that the goal is to be consistent when it comes to its and when it comes to its representational domains or its contextual domains. It seems to be the case that my meta-ontological view is something which is consistent throughout the contextual domains in terms of its application in comparison to all these alternatives in meta-ontological views. So it's going to be the motivation for my ontological view. I apologize, my meta-ontological view. When it comes to the stipulation, I'm not trying to disagree with the stipulation in terms of its equivalence or semantical thesis. It's talking about its semantical thesis in application. So there's a distinction between me saying I disagree with your analyticity and me saying that I disagree with your analyticity being something which is applied in a specific way or in a particular way. So I'm not sure whether that's going to be something which is true or something which is relevant. You didn't address the explanation. When it comes to the principle of indifference, I grant that it's going to be something which precedes the hypotheses. Or maybe you're retarded. I'm not giving a hypothesis. You're going to want to talk about the external hypothesis, which is going to be talking about the lack of the law of excluding middle. For example, it's the case that the principle of indifference is going to be applied before that. I understand that. I agree with that. I agree with the principle of indifference. However, the issue is that the data does not actually represent the population you're trying to fucking represent. The data is not something which accurately represents what you're trying to represent, given that the data is there for a specific reason. I'm not going to give the reason until I conclude because I don't want to help you niggas. I'm going to keep on saying I don't want to help you niggas. So whenever you try to be rhetorical and say, well, the reason why he doesn't want to give it is because he's still like, no, nigga, the judges are going to hear me give a response to that fucking hypothesis shit, which you didn't respond to at all. You didn't respond to my particular point at the fucking end of the debate and at the start of the debate when I was first giving the response. You just can't track. You're so fucking ass. Nothing I said was irrelevant. When it comes to the hypothesis shit, it's the case that the hypotheses both have to. Anyways, when it comes to the domain of truth tracking, it has to be the case that they're truth tracking in a specific way. You didn't justify that they believe it. It's the case that the explanation to the data that I gave is not at all until that they believe the Elium, but rather they accept it because of the specific facts that I named. Maybe you're fucking retarded. In response to everything else, yeah, I agree. And I just want to keep on clearing out, find this for the judge, because this is going to seem like a blunder that they did, because it is a blunder. I agree with the principle of indifference. I agree with the principle of indifference. However, whenever you say that it's evidentially virtuous, it has to be the case that the evidence is something which represents the population. I want to keep on analyzing that and promoting that type of thesis. Nothing that he says actually responds to anything. Let's see, man. Hey, Mono, bro. Hey, Mono. Is there anything else that I need to respond to, Mono?
Yo,
Where did my
Kylo, you're unmuted, bro.
Where did my teammate go? What the fuck? Why is my teammate in the? We're gonna go to closings now. This isn't our time, by the way, so I might just stop talking. I just need my teammate back up here. Is anyone in the position to rise my teammate? Where are the mods at? Yo, Calm, are you here?
Yeah. Well, where is he? I don't see him. Is he in chat?
Yes, he's in the viewership. His name is Auggz.kg.
Yo, Infinity, can you let him up? It's not letting me.
Wait, hold on. And by the way, no, I don't. They stripped me because I was gonna perm abuse. I have an issue with perm abusing. But I ain't gonna lie, Kylo,
Nigga
bro. You want to
admitted he
answer
have
after
a
this? Yeah, nigga. Yeah, I'm not a liar like you. I don't just lie all the
nigga
time.
admitted he has
100%. I
perm
will perm
abusing
abuse.
issues.
Correct, because I'm not a liar like you.
That's funny. That's
100%.
ironic. You are a liar.
Hey, did everybody hear his teammate call me a twink, even though this nigga sounds like a fucking bitch? Like this nigga, like what the fuck? That nigga called me a twink, bro. That nigga sound like he take dick up the ass when he debating. Nigga smell like elephant semen, shitty ass, booty ass nigga. Fuck. Hell no.
Yo, ping Yanni, ping Nani.
Yo, can we conclude? Hey, Auggz, do you agree to
Yeah,
conclude in chat?
we're going to
Wait, can you
closings.
hold up? Yeah, but I just want to ask. Hey, Auggz, do you agree to conclude in chat? If so, then you can just give the closings, Kylo, because nobody has.
I
Let me
can
see.
speak
It
from
doesn't seem
yeah,
like anybody
Augs.
has.
If Augs, I could just speak for you, twin. If they, I mean, I know you want to say your closing though. So
Nigga, bro, just tell them to stop it out. You can say it, bro. Like, and who were the judges? It was Archie, Tron, and who was the third one? Isaac Kim?
yep,
Yeah, I bet. I'm sorry for you.
it doesn't matter. There's a recording now.
Okay. By the way, they had to 2v1 me and they still lost no diff. Oh my
Mm-mm.
God, this is embarrassing.
Now you're delusional.
I,
All
yo,
right,
can we
yo,
conclude, bro?
Augs. I'm gonna just say the closing for us, twin. It's unfortunate, but there have no moderation here. Shit's crazy. So whatever. So, how long do we get? 3 minutes? 4 minutes? Or how long we want?
Bro, just give your closing, bro. And by the way, just
Uh,
to clarify, calm. The closing is to summarize all points in which were talked about, not give new arguments because they realized that they failed to respond to certain points during the debate. That's
Take
what
your own
they
advice.
that's what they like to do.
Yeah, I
Take
know,
your
bro.
own
Don't worry.
advice. I don't know why you're telling the moderator what a closing's supposed to be. Like he gonna do something. What I say in my closing.
Bro, shut your
But
bitch ass up. You
let's
ain't got a
get to it.
bulldog,
Fuck
nigga.
nigga. Relax.
British
All
ass nigga. Shut your
right,
ugly
let's
ass
get a
up, Waz.
muzzle on that
You
bitch
ain't got
ass
a lazy
poodle.
eye. No
You're a
wonder you lost
poodle.
because he
You're
couldn't
a
look at the
poodle. You're
arguments.
retarded
You ain't
as
got
fuck.
two side
You're a
eyes, nigga.
faggot. You
Fuck you
worry
talking
about
about,
how
nigga. This nigga
another
got
nigga
stupid
look. You
eyes.
balls and
Oh
dick. You
ass nigga.
woke
Fuck
up
you
a
talking about,
faggot.
nigga. Yo
Mute
bitch
that
ass.
nigga.
Nigga got a
I
dog
don't know why
profile,
he's
nigga. That nigga do
server
not fuck
muted.
with you,
I
bitch
don't
ass
know
nigga. Nigga got
why
2
he's
ears.
not
Hey,
server
come on, the
muted.
debate is over.
Let's
Do
just
not
get a
serve me. The
muzzle on
debate
this
is over.
retard. Fuck while I get my closing. Thank you, you fucking faggot. You worry about how another nigga look as a grown man. Nigga woke up a bitch, gonna go to sleep a fag. But let's get into the closing. So let me just go over a few things that I should be going over, right? Let's just talk about the win conditions, right? So the debate was about does a necessary being exist, i.e., God. Okay, now what were we supposed to do within the debate? We are supposed to lay out an argument, right? The question is, did we lay out an argument? Yes. Now, not only should we lay out an argument, we should justify the argument, giving reasons to believe that the argument is one which is true. And when you say, what does it mean for the argument to be true? That's just to say all the line of reasoning within the argument is the type of reasoning which comports to reality. Okay. The question is that to be the case? The answer is yes. We went through each premise and justified each premise independently. I secured that's reasoning. I made sure I did that on the recording. Okay. So we did justify the argument. Now, not only should we justify the argument, but we should adequately respond to the contentions levied to the argument. The problem is there was very minute amount of contentions levied to the argument. The pushback given, which is not really pushback, was epistemic bankruptcy. This is the Discord tactic, the faggot nigger tactic they do. They just say, why should I accept X, Y, and Z? I don't hold to X, Y, and Z. And they think that that's going to be an attack on the argument. They think that's going to get them to win. My nigga, that shit is not debating. I'm sorry to tell you, that will not, unfortunately, get you to win. Let's talk about some of the bullshit our opponent did, the niggas dog shit. So, for one, let's talk about the talking rate. Now, I don't know if the minions in this motherfucker think it's optically appealing to talk at 10x speed. Anybody can talk at 10x speed. It's
Bro, Kylo, just get on with the actual substance, bro. You don't need to do all this rhetorical shit for your conclusion. Also, like, stop with the fucking slurs, bro. It's getting out of hand.
pussy. I don't know why this bitch ass nigga interrupting me. The fuck up. So, what the fuck wrong with that nigga? Nigga done lost his motherfucking mind. Back to what I was saying, bitch. So he thinks talking at a speed rate is gonna make him win the debate. No, it's actually less productive. Talking at a speed rate just makes it less easy for the opponents.
Bro, are you fucking serious, bro? Get to the fucking points that you fucking made. Address them. Like, I don't know why you're doing this dumb shit. This is so retarded.
Fuck up, you bitch. There's no more moderation you need to be doing. We're in closing statements, pussy.
Bro, I don't know why you think there's no moderation just because we're concluding. That's really weird. If you keep making me mute you, you're just going to keep getting muted. I don't know why you keep addressing me like that. It's weird.
Nigga, shut the fuck up while I'm giving my closing, pussy.
All right, bro. They're okay. Y'all agree there's no moderation during conclusions, but that's fine. Hold on.
All right, shut the fuck up, bitch.
Hey,
Alright,
mute him. Hey, calm. You can perma abuse since
I'm
there's no
not
moderation.
done
Your
giving
conclusions
my
apparently.
closing.
Yeah, so to give a conclusion, hey, thank you. So to give a closing real quick, these niggas are so retarded. When it comes to my meta-ontological view, it wasn't just simply semantical reduction. So the semantical reduction wouldn't work when it comes to God's existence, but rather it was meaningful semantical reduction. Meaningful, the prefix is going to add metaphysical codification. So he would have to justify why metaphysical codification exists when it comes to necessities, which he didn't at all. When it comes to denying the laws of thought, by the way, for everybody in the VC and for all the judges, he is debating whether or not God exists. And his definition of God is a necessity. Obviously, that's uncontroversial. So I'm going to have to use unconventional types of arguments or types of responses or types of questions, whatever. It's the case that I did do that. And ultimately, it caused me to win. So seemingly speaking, there was no justification when it comes to God. Also, by the way, this is a point I want to make clear. Everybody listen. All the high tiers, Hermes, Mono, Sukuna, etc. Bradley, listen to this real quick. They failed to track this. And Auggz, I want you to listen to this too because you failed to track this completely. And by the way, look, calm. After this, I'm going to tell you what to do. But in respect to all these academics or all these scholars or this entire population accepting the law of excluded middle and the laws of thought, the reason why that's not going to be good evidence, in other words, that's not going to grant some prima facie justification in regards to an epistemically appropriate belief, is because you're going to want to make the claim that anyways, you're going to make the claim that they're going to believe the laws of thought. You're going to want to make the claim that they believe the laws of thought. However, the data that you gave is simply them talking about the laws of thought or positing the laws of thought, which I grant. But positing the laws of thought doesn't mean that they believe it. It's the case that the reason why they accept, not that they believe or that they know, but accept. The reason why they accept the laws of thought is the biasness that they possess relative to the hypothesis. Most hypotheses or most theses in which are presented by a regular philosopher, scholar, whatever, is going to be something in which expects the laws of thought to be true when it comes to its evaluation, which is why there exists biasness when it comes to the data that they're accounting for. So their entire response was not the size of the population, Ox, that you kept on trying to press on. It wasn't the size of the population at all, you fucking retard, but rather it was the type of population you were trying to represent. The population we're representing is supposed to be the population of people who truly know or believe in the laws of thought. However, the evidence that you gave wasn't representative of the population of people who believe or know the laws of thought, but rather people who posit the laws of thought. But the reason why they posit the laws of thought is because of biasness. So although I do grant that the principle of indifference applies to two controversial, I apologize, two theories in which, are disagreeing with each other, are incompatible with each other in terms of their scale of likelihood, if there's no evidence presented. I wasn't trying to present evidence, by the way. However, the scale of likelihood that your thesis has, which would obviously disqualify the principle of indifference, supposedly wouldn't actually disqualify the principle of indifference, because the type of evidence that you need, that type of requirement, Trouble, you can speak after I'm done, that type of requirement is not something which was actually qualified or met. The type of evidence that you need is good evidence. However, if the evidence is supposed to be pointing towards a domain in which is biased, due to the truth tracking being something which is off of biased evidence, it entails that the population you represented was not people who believe in the laws of thought, but rather people who accept the laws of thought. And the acceptance is not something which is actually going to be valid or justified, because I don't care about the acceptance or consideration. And you didn't even respond to that point as to why the acceptance alone would be enough. So the prima facie justification wouldn't work when it comes to compatibility thesis. Whenever you want to make the claim that, well, all you did with the meta-ontological view is talk about the ontic stat. No, you fucking retard. The ontic status is irrelevant in regards to specifically the meta-ontological view alone, the specific meta-ontological view description that I gave alone. But the meta-ontological view I was talking about was meaningful semantical reduction, which includes, typically speaking, logical and metaphysical codification. But when I talk about logical codification, I'm talking about something else. You kept on talking about how you already gave some type of logical modality, or you kept on giving a description of what it means for something to be logically possible. But that goes circular to the truth table or the truth evaluation, which is going to be dependent on these classical laws, in which I don't grant, I disregard them. So you need to justify that. In sum, it seems as if you just went circular the entire time. You didn't actually justify your conclusion. When it comes to the validity, I explained why your argument needs to be valid. I explained why your argument needs to be sound. You didn't actually justify your argumentative theory, even though you tried to put that burden onto me, by the way. The only reason why I questioned your argumentative theory, by the way, is because they questioned my theory of justification, which they didn't respond to, by the way. I said I can take some foundationalist account or any conventional epistemological type of theory of justification, and it would still be effective when it comes to reasoning my way out of whatever you're talking about, etc. You didn't respond to anything. So I did not grant P1. Also, by the way, they didn't explain at all why my my justification as to why their arguments rely on the laws of thought would fail. So it's the case that for the dichotomy, die means two. The law of excluding middle is going to say that there exists two options, no middle ground. The middle ground is going to be at least a third option, meaning that would disqualify one of the premises, because the premises is talking about a dichotomy, but that would be a trichotomy. Die means two, tri means three. So it would be a dichotomy. It would be three options. If it can be the middle ground, that means that there exists a possible third option, meaning it wouldn't be a dichotomy that disqualifies the potency for that. When it comes to the analyticity, I can grant that there exists some stipulation when it comes to the analyticity. What I'm not agreeing with is not talking about the analytical criteria, but rather the analytical criteria's application, in which, by the way, he made the blunder that you can't stipulate some analytical truth off of premises. That's fucking retarded. You can talk about how your ontological view is simply in reference to some semantical reduction. And because of the semantical reduction, it follows that God exists, but the type of semantical reduction God has. And this is just an example. I'm not conceding that God exists. It's just an example. Just an example so they can understand, because obviously they're theists, whatever. It's the case that under some semantical reduction, you can say that God exists. And then God exists with this type of semantical reduction, this particular type of semantical reduction, which has some maximally great causal power. It's the case that maximally great causal power is going to be something which is incompatible with his mode of existence being mind dependency or mind dependent, or in other words, conceptual. Meaning it's the case that in virtue of the dichotomy, at least within the example, I don't grant the dichotomy overall, it would have to be the case that it exists mind independently, which is why I was clearing the mode of existence up. Of course, their God exists semantically speaking, but we're talking about his ontic existence, his ontic status. He also tried to point out a blunder when it comes to the chemistry point. He was saying, well, I could take some Aristotelian type of model when it comes to argumentation. Yeah, maybe you're retarded. When he was saying can, I don't grant that he was talking about some elitic status, but rather some bulletic status, which is obviously not going to be a blunder on my end if I call out the lack of chemistry. You fucking retard. But in sum, they lost, they suck. We're stopping the recording. Boom, ba doom, duluta. The judges are going to be Isaac M. Archie and Tron. I'm going to send it to them.